Hey there, Bryson here, and I'm back with another video. In this video, I will be finishing out all of the very easy problems that are so far available on HackerEarth. So that means finishing find product, cost of balloons, count divisors, factorial, toggle string, Roy and profile picture, and split houses. Okay, so let's get started. First things first, I'm going to start with find product. And let's read it. So you could probably read it for yourself, but you are given an array A of size n consisting of positive integers. You need to find and print the product of all of the number in this array module, that number. Okay, so the first line is going to contain the size of the array, and then the next line is the array, basically. Yeah, it shouldn't be that bad. I am going to do the code right now, and then I'm going to explain it later. Alright, so I think I finished the code. So best way to check if I did is to test it. So the test case has worked, and now let's submit it. Okay, so it is accepted. So now let me explain the code. So in the first line, I just get the length. And I don't really need to use the length because Python has some neat functions to use. But I just take the input, so it goes to the next input. So the next line may seem kind of confusing, but all it's really doing is that it's first getting the input and then splitting that based off those spaces. So the array, this will return an array with strings of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then since those are strings, I convert all of them into integers. Like for x in those strings, I want the integer of x. So all of this just basically turns this into actual integers. And then now I have answer equals 1 because if you're going to be multiplying things, it's best to initialize something, your first one to 1. And then for each thing in numbers, I multiply answer times I, and then I do the module list, that number. And then I just print the answer. Yeah, so basically I use this format here. And yeah, that's this problem. Time for the next one. Cost of balloons. You are conducting a contest at your college. This contest consists of 2 problems and n participants. You won't know the problem that a candidate will solve during the contest. You will provide a balloon to a participant after he or she solves a problem. There are only green and purple balloons. Okay, so there's green and purple balloons available. Each problem must have a balloon associated with it as a prize. You can distribute balloons to each participant. So use green balloons for the first and purple for the second, or purple for the first and green for the second. Alright, so you're given the cost of each balloons and problems that each participant solve. Your task is to print the minimum price that you have to pay while purchasing balloons. Alright, so basically, if more people solve the first problem, it's best to use the cheaper one for the cheaper price for the problem more people solve. So first line is T, which is the number of test cases. And then for each test case, then you got cost of green and purple balloons, and then number of participants, and then, so if it's 0, then has not solved the problem. So if it's 1, they have solved the problem. I am going to do the code and then explain it afterwards. Alright, so I have finished writing the code and now time to compile and test. Alright, so it worked here, and now let's submit, and it's been accepted. Okay, so now time to explain this code. So first I get the number of trials, which is probably the most important thing. And then I will have to do a loop for the number of trials there are. So that's this line. And then the prices is the next line. And then I did the same thing like I did in the other one. And then the reason I don't have the space here is because dot split's default is space. And next I get the number of participants, so I know how much to loop later on. And then this questions array is the running total of how many people get the first question right and how many people get the second question right. And then for all the participants, I get the answer, like what they answered. Same thing using the same method I did here and in the previous one. And then I add to the first value in questions if they got the first value correct, and I add to the second value in questions if they got the second question correct. And then I multiply the minimum, like the min of these questions, so the question that less people got correct times the maximum prices, and then the max of questions, which is the question that more people got correct, times minimum prices, because you want lower prices for more things and greater prices for less things. And then you just print the total. And that's it for this question. It's time to move on to count divisors. You have been given three integers, L, R, and K. Find how many numbers between L and R, both inclusive, are divisible by K. You do not need to print these numbers, you just have to find their count. The first and only line of input contains three separated integers, L, R, and K. Alright, this seems like a for loop sort of thing. So again, I'll write the code and then get back. Alright, so I'm back and I passed the sample test cases. Now let's submit and see. Okay, it's been accepted. So now time to explain the code. So I initialize the count to 0, and then I get L, R, and K to be the array. So if I go like commas here, that means L will be the 0th element in this array, and then R is the first, and then K is the second. And then this is probably familiar to you now. It's just basically converting this into like an array with integers in it. And then for I in range L to R plus 1, the reason it's R plus 1 is because if I went to R, it wouldn't include R. And here it said both inclusive. So that's why I go to R plus 1, and it's also good that these are integers. And if I is divisible by K, then I increase the count by 1 and then print the count at the end. So that's it for this problem, and now time to move on to the next one, which is Factorial. Okay, so you are given a positive integer n. You need to find and print the factorial of this number. The factorial of a positive number n refers to the product of all number in the range from 1 to n. You could read more about factorial, blah, blah, blah. Or like before, I am going to be doing the code, and then I'll explain it later. Alright, so I'm done, and let's see if it's correct, and it is passing the sample test case, and now has passed all test cases. So as you can see, this is a relatively simple one. So I initialize product to be 1, and then for I in range from 2 all the way to the number plus 1, again, like the previous problem, you want to go to that number, but if you didn't put this plus 1, it would include this number. So by doing that plus 1, you actually include that number. And then you just do product times equals I and then print product. Alright, time for a toggle string. You have been given a string S consisting of uppercase and lowercase English alphabets. You need to change the case of each alphabet in this string. That is, all uppercase letters should be converted to lowercase and all lowercase should be converted to uppercase. You then need to print the resultant string to output. I'm going to be writing the code and then explaining it later. Alright, so I'm back, and as you can see, I passed the sample test case, and now to submit, and it has been accepted. So basically what I did was I got the string in the input, and then I got the new string, which I'll be making based off the things in the string. So for every character in string, if the uppercase of the character is not equal to the previous one, that means it used to be a lowercase. That means I will add the uppercase of that lowercase. And if that is not true, I'll be adding the lowercase because that means it was uppercase before. And then I'm just going to print the new string. Alright, only 2 left. So Roy and his profile picture. Roy wants to change his profile picture, blah blah blah. So if any of the width and height is less than L, so L is the side of a square, then you have to upload another. If width and height both large enough, and if the photo is square, then it's accepted. If it's not square, then you have to crop. Alright, so first line is L, second line is N, number of photos, and the following N lines are width and height. Alright, this should just be like sort of if else problem. And I'll write the code and get back to you later. Alright, so I'm back and let's compile and test, and sample test cases have been passed. Now we're gonna submit for real, and it's been accepted. Yay. So what I did was that first I got L and then I got N, and then for I in range N, so for N times basically, I'm going to get the width and the height, and if the width is less than the L or height is less than L, then you have to upload another because that's what it says here. And then else means that they're both greater than or equal to L. Then if width is equal to height, that means it is accepted. And then finally else, then you crop it because that's the only thing left. And finally, we're on the last problem of this video, which is split houses. Alright, so I'm gonna have to think about this one, and then I'll write the code and I'll get back to you. Alright, so I'm back and I think the solution might work. Oh, and then I spelled replace incorrectly. Now, will it work? Alright, and now let's submit. Seems that all test cases have been passed, but it says partially accepted for some reason. But I'll take it that I just solved it. And so basically my explanation is that if it has HH in the string, then it is impossible because a person, you want it so a person cannot reach a house that does not belong to that person. So if there are 2 adjacent houses, then it doesn't work. But if there aren't 2 adjacent houses, then you basically are just filling up everything with fences. And that's this problem, and I think that's it for the very easy problems. So let's refresh this. And yes, all the very easy problems are done. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. It's been a pretty long one. Hopefully it'll get shorter in the future. But we have finished all the very easy problems of basic programming, input/output. Please like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And I'll see you in the next one. See ya.